What is your never again brand, store, restaurant, or company? A bar I went to on my 25th birthday. I got there and opened a tab to get my first couple of drinks before my friend showed up and started buying for me. At the end of the night, I went to get my bill, which should have been under $20. Instead, I got a single piece of paper with the total of $85. It did not come with an itemized slip. Edit. For the people who can't gather this from context, that was unusual. All the times I'd gone to the bar before, I got itemized receipts. All my friends that night got itemized receipts when they all closed out. I spent 20 minutes on my birthday at the bar calling out the bartender's name, asking for an itemized receipt, while he pretended he could neither see nor hear me. I went home and reached out to management and explained the story to them, including how long I tried to get his attention. Her reply: "If you thought there was an issue with your receipt, you should have asked the bartender to explain it to you. Never again." Case anyone cares, it's Penn Social in DC. Edit. Since this seems to be coming up a lot. This is America, so not chip and pin. They won't serve you unless they first swipe your credit card. I could not simply leave without paying. It was going to be charged to me no matter what. My experience with disputing the charges is that it's not super convenient, so I was really hoping to be able to deal with this at the bar without having to do that. So please don't be one of the 337 people who've told me I should have just left. Story 3. Comcast. A door-to-door salesman straight up lied to my dad, saying they had a 4D VR setup that would cost less than what we were paying AT&T. When the installation guy got there, he said that no, they didn't have a 4D VR setup. He was told to give us the standard 2D VR setup, which was absolutely not something that would work in a house with 6 people with wildly different tastes in TV shows. So my dad tells him, never mind, we're sticking with AT&T then. But because the Comcast guy had already installed our new cable box, he couldn't take it back with him, so we had to mail it back to Comcast ourselves. The kicker is, 5 years later, Comcast tried to bill my parents for the cable box, saying we never sent it back. My parents insisted they did, and Comcast wanted the UPS receipt, which obviously we no longer had because it was 5 years ago and we hadn't heard anything from before this. So my parents refused to pay. Comcast sent a collections company after us, and when my parents explained the situation to the collection company, they were like, "F those losers, we'll take care of this." That was thankfully the end of it. Story 14. Tony's Pizza Place, Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. September 26, 1986, was the day I buried my infant son. He was 11 months old and died from complications due to being born 3 months premature. His twin brother is healthy and got married 3.5 years ago. After returning from the burial ceremony to the funeral home, we went out to our cars and found flyers tucked under the windshield wipers. Having a family get-together? Why not have it at Tony's Pizza Palace? Ask about our group discounts. Edit. I thought I should add this. Tony's happens to be 1 block away from the funeral home, 3 blocks from the second biggest hospital, and about 10 blocks away from the second biggest shopping mall in the city, all of which are in a straight line. I figure some 17-year-old kid working part-time for Tony's was given a pile of flyers and asked to put them on cars at the mall. The kid, not thinking, saw all the cars and probably started at the funeral home, then went to the hospital parking lots and was probably out of flyers before he even got to the mall. I seriously doubt anyone in management, or perhaps I hope that nobody, at Tony's was aware that this happened, but it happened on a day that I won't forget and I still haven't gotten past it. Yeah, there's a right and wrong way to market, and there is a market target for said marketing, so I don't know if offering pizza to people at funeral homes is necessarily the best move. Probably just a misunderstanding, but OP, sorry to hear about your child. That sucks. Story 5. Cancun. A little Mexican restaurant in my area. They had a bunch of tacos on their menu, all of which listed cheese and white sauce as ingredients. The fish tacos didn't, so I ordered them and didn't bother specifying that I didn't want cheese or white sauce. Well, they came out smothered in both and I couldn't eat them, so I sent them back. The waiter came out and made a huge show of interrogating my husband about why she, meaning me sitting right there across the effing table, fully capable of speaking for myself, sent back the food, and told my husband that it wasn't the restaurant's fault that she didn't just assume that the tacos would obviously come covered in ingredients the menu didn't mention. When I said that he should be talking to me, the one with the problem, he said that he was only comfortable talking with, quote, the one who would be paying the bill. I asked to speak to the manager, and as he was leaving to get him, I very clearly heard him call me a female dog on his way out. The manager backed up his sexist prick of a server, so we left without paying, have never gone back, and have told others not to go. F that place. Story 6. State Farm. I've heard stories of how great they were with other people's claims, that other customers were well taken care of, and I feel a twinge of envy. Several months before my middle child was born, our water heater broke and leaked all over the hall tile and under the wall in the kitchen. We sopped it up with towels and called our agent. She had remediation workers there a short time later, fans on the carpet, checking the drywall, all the standard stuff. The adjuster met with us and went over all the stuff that would need replacing, carpet and tile. Our tile was contiguous, so it all went. It was ugly orange tile, so we were thrilled to get some new tile of a different color. We selected a contractor and he did his assessment. He told us that we would also need our kitchen cabinets replaced because the water had soaked up the sides, and it only looked okay because the toe kick was hardboard. But the sides were particle board and the water would have irreparably damaged the hidden material. This was early June. The adjuster said hell no. The contractor got angry, the adjuster got angry, and 4 months later, the adjuster finally agreed to have a third-party inspector come and take a look. During this pissing contest, I asked my agent to intervene. She said that what the adjuster says goes. The independent inspector comes, I take him to the kitchen, he pulls the fridge out and says, after less than 3 minutes of being over, yep, those need replacing. Now I have a contractor performing demo work while I have a 2-week-old newborn in the house. The work was completed to our satisfaction in 2 weeks' time. Once the work was done, we canceled our State Farm policies and moved auto to Progressive and home to Allstate. Our agent was interested then, came to the house and brought over a swag bag. Almost 20 years later, all that's left from the swag bag is a well-used State Farm potholder that I refuse to toss as it serves as a reminder of our ordeal. I chuckle at the State Farm mailers I get every 2 months or so as I chuck them into the recycle bin. Story 8. AT&T. I was told that canceling my cable and internet services with them would cost me $50 to not return the modem and cable boxes. I didn't care, as I would have had to mail them in and didn't want to mess with the hassle, so I didn't. 6 months later, I find a $487 charge on my MasterCard, and it was from AT&T. It was $150 per piece of equipment and a $37 service charge. Charging me money for their hassle of having to charge me money. I asked if they returned the equipment, would they rescind the charges? They said yes. I returned the equipment and they refused to take off the charge. I confirmed with them that they received the equipment and they said yes, they did, but wouldn't rescind the charges after all. I fought it up their chain of command as much as possible and even tried to fight it through MasterCard, but they couldn't do anything about it either. Alright, so this is the first one that I personally co-sign. AT&T sucks. If you have them, run away as far as you can. It's only a matter of time before they screw you sideways. Story 9. A hospital in my area. My brother and his wife just recently had a baby there, my first nephew and their first child. He was born 2 weeks premature by scheduled C-section, but you couldn't tell since he was more than 9 pounds when he came out. If he went full term, he could have been more than 11 pounds. Anyways, he arrives and everything is going well. His blood sugar was a little low, but the doctors claimed it got better. A day later, he begins twitching every once in a while. My sister-in-law asked the pediatrician and the nurse why they said it was fine. The day after that, and the twitching increased, and he began doing it every other minute. My brother and his wife panic and ask the doctor, but the doctor checks his blood quickly and says nothing is wrong, but if they're still worried about it, they should wait to go to the pediatrician on Monday, 3 days later. As soon as they leave the hospital, despite the baby still twitching, they turn around and ask for the doctor to please look one more time. He refuses and tells them that they can't look anymore because they're discharged from the hospital. Refusing to believe that their baby was okay, my brother and his wife took him to a different hospital's emergency room. The doctor there took one look at the baby's blood and immediately prepared a bottle of formula for him. His blood sugar was 36. If you aren't familiar with blood sugar, then just know that sugar that low can be deadly. My sister-in-law's milk hasn't come in yet. She didn't know that, and the pediatrician at the first hospital only gave the baby 2 ounces of formula in 2 days. The baby was very close to going into shock. If they took the doctor's advice and waited until Monday, that baby would have been dead before reaching home. Edit. My sister-in-law was checked many times for gestational diabetes, and she didn't have it at any point. The hospital is in Pennsylvania, but I won't name which one, at least until my brother and sister-in-law decide to sue or not. I and most of my family agree that they should sue, but they're much more focused on their new baby at the moment. The baby is fine now and getting fed plenty at home, with a mixture of both breast milk and formula. Story 10. Used to be a health inspector. In my first year, a lot of my old favorite restaurants were ruined for me, but none as bad as the discount sushi place my college bestie and I used to frequent. They had roaches bad. In my time at the health department, I never saw them worse than in that kitchen. We got calls about roaches at least twice a month, and every time they went, they were back with a vengeance. They were closed for them multiple times, but just never kept up with the pest control and cleaning necessary to get rid of them. They were also dyeing tilapia red and selling it as red snapper on their menu. This is pretty common around here, but it's super illegal because it's literal false advertising. Fun fact. Some people are allergic to tilapia. Not sure I want to be around when that restaurant owner finds that out. They had hundreds of cardboard boxes stacked outside their back door, plus a bunch of old equipment they weren't using. This added to the roach problem, and any day it could turn into a rodent problem. One time I drive by and they had animal cages back there too. I don't want to know that story. Add to that, I'm pretty sure the employees are all indentured servants or victims of human trafficking. They all show up in the same beat-up white van every day and work a 12-plus hour shift. The owner is unkind to them and they don't respect him. He says he can trust them to do their jobs, but was sketchy when we said to fire them and hire employees who will. We never had proof, but it was always upsetting and struck me as off. He tried to bribe me and my coworkers multiple times too. I'm not a health inspector anymore, but he still tries to give me free food or money when he sees me. He opened a new restaurant and I didn't know it was his, so a friend and I went to go check it out. I was told that appetizers were free for me only. Then I saw him in the back and we had to leave. Never again. It's too sketchy and too likely to get me sick. Story 11. Levi's. For 20 years, I could order Levi's online without trying them on. I just needed to know my size and knew they'd fit. I'd order a few pairs every few years. Then, sometime in the past 10 years, QA went off a cliff, and of the last 6 pair I ordered, all of were a different cut. 2 too tight in the groin, 1 too short, and 1 of the 3 that fit. 2 developed quarter-sized holes in the groin/rear pocket area within 6 months of normal wear. Wranglers seem a bit better nowadays, but not much. Meanwhile, I still have one of my first pairs of Levi's that I wear at home because they're a bit too big for me now. Lost weight. Still in acceptable condition. Story 12. Warning, disgusting story ahead. I went to Dickey's Barbecue Pit. Their food isn't amazing, but I was craving southern food, and my suburban town in California doesn't have many options. So me and my girlfriend buy some sandwiches and have them for dinner. They're cold and taste like salty sweat. The next day, I have uncontrollable crapping, liquid crap, and vomiting multiple times an hour. If I was alone, I would have gone to the emergency room, but my dad's a nurse and was there. I vomited something like 20 times in the whole day and kept dry heaving afterwards. The diarrhea came out so fast and uncontrolled that it ruined multiple pairs of underwear and a rug that was by the toilet. Why my dad has rugs in the bathroom, I don't know, but I crapped on it when bent over the toilet. It took only a day for me to feel better, and I was already eating heavy foods again. But lo and behold, guess who comes over to see me well again and craps herself in my bathroom? My girlfriend, the only other person who ate at Dickey's. So I spent the rest of the day, after having just crapped and vomited myself to death, helping my girlfriend when she was crapping and vomiting. I think we're closer to each other after that experience. Yeah, there's no better form of trauma bonding with a significant other than having the runs like that. Story 13. I run the front desk at a hotel, and they're an absolute nightmare. They also straight up lie to the guests and to the hotels constantly. Truly, one of the most shady companies I've ever dealt with. They purposely try and deceive people who don't know any better into thinking that they're dealing with the hotel directly. They create ads in such a way that when people Google the hotel's phone number, a number to Expedia comes up. And if the customer asks if they're speaking directly with the hotel front desk, they will say yes. There have been countless times where guests have called to cancel their reservation that was booked through Expedia. I inform them that they will have to contact Expedia directly since they prepaid through them, but that it will be no issue because the hotel does not charge a penalty fee for cancellation. An Expedia representative will call the hotel with the guest on hold and ask about getting it canceled. I tell them it's no problem. They ask if we'll be charging a penalty fee, and I tell them no. All is right and good, right? Nope. I then get a call back from the guest who's upset, saying that the Expedia representative told them they could not be refunded because of the fee charged by the hotel's cancellation policy, taking the guest's money and blaming it on the hotel and keeping it all for the profit. This has happened countless times. I once had a guest while at the front desk call about canceling 3 days out of a multiple-day reservation, as she had to leave earlier than expected. They pulled the same bullcrap with her, not knowing that she was at the front desk. After me telling the representative that the cancellation is fine and we will not be charging any penalties, they get back on the phone with her and blatantly lie. I asked her to hand her phone to me, and that was quite a surprise for the representative, who said that, quote, there must have been a misunderstanding. Story 14. I've told this before, but I'll do it again for craps and giggles. I will never eat at Arby's again. Once upon a time, at a Treasure Coast, Florida Arby's, I decide I'm hungry and snag myself a nice, messy barbecue sandwich. Every time I ate them, I always lamented how they'd be better with a slightly toasted bun. Well, I make my order, pay, sit down, and take a bite. My fervorous hunger is rewarded by a resounding crunch. They toasted my bun. While still chewing, I pull my burger away and look it over. There's not a slight bit of tanning in the bun, and now that I hold it and analyze it, it doesn't feel remotely stiff like a toasted bun would. As I sat there, food still in my mouth, a wave of horror came over me and prompted me to open up the bun. I'd seen the largest palmetto bug I'd seen in quite some time. Or half of it at least. Now, I'm a good person. At least I feel I can be more often than not. But at that moment of mind effery, mixed in with a serving of disgust and a side of why me, I snapped. I rushed towards the cashier stations and winged the burger at the closest wall/barrier I could see, spat the food all over their floors, and cussed them up one side and down the other. I've never set foot in an Arby's since then, and I now have a vicious hatred for any kind of wet bread texture that's ruined quite a few meal types for me. I can't even dunk effing cookies in milk. Never again. Story 15. Midas. I got a coupon for a $20 oil change, tire rotation, and inspection from the grocery store, so I decided to go and use it before taking a road trip. A few weeks after the oil change and everything, I started to notice a wet spot in my parking space when my car wasn't there, and it kept growing and never drying. I took my car into the dealership because it was still under its limited warranty, and yep, it was an oil leak. Whoever changed my oil at Midas had stripped the plug. Dealership patched it for free, and it held for a while, but years later I needed to shell out for a new oil pan, and it was a costly repair. Served me right for cheating on the trusted family-owned shop next door that's never effed me over. The one time they made a mistake, they owned up to it and made it right. For free, as soon as they could. Oh, and the one time I went to Valvoline, the guy went off on me for having a effed up oil plug. So that's made me not want to go there again, even though I probably should give them another shot because their hours are really good and they didn't actually cause any damage. Story 16. Comcast. My elderly mother is in late-stage Alzheimer's, but she's still able to watch TV and use the remote. But she would sometimes make a mistake, get lost in the menus, etc. And on the monthly bill, we would see upwards of $400 in new charges, where she would somehow just continue pressing buttons because, well, she has Alzheimer's. This went on for months. I would have to call, explain time after time that they would refund the charges and put a block on any new charges. It took at least an hour each time. Once, some rep or manager had the temerity to tell me that since it keeps happening, this would be the last time they would issue a refund. I'm not sure who I spoke with ultimately, but she was capable and she added the right sort of block. We haven't had any charges since, but you can imagine my fury when they would either tell me they couldn't put on a block or that they had when they hadn't. Anyway, I hate them so much that I'm sad I even spent 5 minutes typing this comment. Story 17. The regular pizza place where my family orders from was undergoing a renovation, so we decided to try another one in town. I called, ordered the pie, and was told to wait. The time the guy said it would take for it to arrive goes by, then 10 more minutes, then 30. Finally, this kid who barely looks like he finished high school shows up in front of my apartment building and starts going to the front door. For some reason, the bottom of the box was soggy, so much that it literally tore open before he got halfway to the door, spilling a good part of the pizza onto the pavement. By this time, both of us are pissed. The kid is beyond annoyed, rather than apologetic, and is trying to force me to accept the pizza. I'm having none of it and decide to call the place to explain what happened. The guy on the other end says they'll send another over and to keep the delivered mess as an apology. 40 minutes later, the replacement finally arrives. To his credit, the delivery boy managed to bring it in one piece this time. On the other hand, that was the blandest, most god-awful pizza I've ever eaten. They either forgot or intentionally didn't put salt into the dough. They used the cheapest bologna and gummy cheese they could find, and the mushrooms were of the disgusting canned variety. That was the first and only time I've ever ordered anything from that place. Story 18. Holy crap, PayPal is the crappiest company on the face of the planet. Their customer support is run by people who pretend to be confused about your problem until you or them hang up. Here's my wonderful story about PayPal and their absolute monkey brain service. I'm 16 and my dad pays me small amounts of money for helping in his office on some days and mowing the lawn, etc. We used PayPal. I had my own account and it was super convenient. He had his balance, I had mine. It took 3 minutes to transfer whatever I had earned, and it was so easy. I could spend or save it how I please. But now, the new government restrictions say that they can't really do that. I, having being 16, didn't really understand at the time what was happening, so I decided to DM the customer service on Twitter. I got an extremely drawn-out and complicated answer over 50 plus hours of waiting for them to respond. Me responding immediately and then waiting more. It basically said, yeah, there won't be any changes to your balance features. I figured that's fine as long as I can keep my balance and spend it. Well, holy F did they lie. And they lied bad too. In early April, I was trying to renew Spotify because it wasn't working on Premium. The April payment hadn't gone through. I have the little debit card you could order online and link it to your account. I tried buying something on Steam for like 99 cents to test, and sure enough, my card wasn't working. I tried spending the dollar with Steam's direct PayPal support, and sure enough, it went through successfully. So they had canceled the card. Once again, I figured, alright, that's fine, I can live with only balance. If I need a card, I'll just transfer whatever the amount is to my dad and put it with his credit cards. But it gets better. I DM'd PayPal once again to just get info on what to do, and got no response in 2 days. So I called their customer support. I was on hold for 46 minutes before finally I'm told I need to wait for them to call me back. I agreed and waited 2 hours for a call that wouldn't come through. I called again, waited 15 minutes on hold, and then am told to wait, once again, for them to call me back. I agree, and an hour later they call me. The woman picks up, and I ask if they canceled the PayPal card. She tells me no. I told her they did, or mine is broken. She told me there is no transaction history with the card and no failed payments. I told her there should be, as a 99-cent purchase didn't go through. She pretended to act all confused about there is a 99-cent charge, and I had to sit and explain to an adult working for a company what was going on and how they were lying to me. I'm a little bit of a squeaker, so I'm sure this sounds better on text than it did in real life. She tells me to call the number on the back of the card and hangs up. She hung up on me. So I call the number on the card. A man picks up. He asks what's wrong. I calmly state my problem, and he acts confused, saying there was no changes to how the PayPal cards work. I tried to be as specific as possible. I know there's multiple cards. He still told me there were no problems and there was something wrong with my account. I ask him to help me fix it, and he directs me to the customer service number I just got off the phone with. I told him to redirect me, after he told me there would be no wait times because he was transferring me rather than waiting in the line. He lied. I waited 15 minutes listening to the goddamn hold music until someone picked up. I had, at this point, been on the phone for over an hour and I was angry. Then hung up on me immediately. I said, F it, it's fine. Then last week they hold my balance hostage. I'm under 18, so putting in a social security number is not going to work. So my only option is to transfer to a bank account. So I did. And now I got a confirmation message yesterday morning that said, yeah, there is an error. Please call customer support. F that company. TLDR, PayPal makes changes, lie about them. I try to find out, they don't tell me. Then they canceled my use of balance completely. This story isn't about how they canceled my balance. It's that their customer service is crap. I'm aware I'm under 18, so I shouldn't be using it. If they had blatantly told me that, then I would have been angry, yes, but at least they were honest. I'm not entitled to use their service, but I feel I'm entitled to a straight answer when they're canceling my crap left and right. Story 19. Cadillac. We're an Asian family and we immigrated to America in the early 80s. My father had sold his business and we started our new lives here. One of his big American bucket list items was to own a Cadillac. His English was pretty good, but he does have an accent. He shows up at the Cadillac dealership with an envelope full of $100 bills in his suit pocket. They run his credit, but we had just arrived maybe 2 weeks prior, so of course there's no credit record at all. So the salesman completely turns on him, as does the sales manager, and calls him some rude names and basically orders him to leave. He never got the chance to say, "I know I don't have credit. This is why I brought tens of thousands of dollars here in cash to buy this car in cash." They kick my dad out the door, insulting him, calling him a loser, and accusing him of wasting their time. So since then, we've been able to keep Cadillac and GM out of our lives on a permanent basis till perpetuity. I've already told my young sons not to buy a Cadillac. I'm confident the brand will die before our boycott gets forgotten through future generations. Story 20. Chase Bank. They held my mortgage when I lived in Miami during and after the financial crisis of 2008 when the HARP program came out. Can't pay your mortgage? We'll cut you a break. Some months later, I called them up and said, "Hey, how about a break for someone who's getting killed home value-wise, but still pays their bills and didn't take out $1 million mortgage based on $45,000 declared income per year?" Their response was essentially, "Keep paying full price, sucker." Later, when they opened HARP to everyone, I got a letter from Chase saying, "Thanks for being such a great customer. Come in to refinance at a lower rate." So I decided to take advantage of it. They put me in a system. I had to pay a fee to get the process going and get a property inspection. Now, during all of this, I was changing jobs and had a couple months off before starting my new job. I let them know when they asked for pay stubs, and they said that they would need a letter from my new employer showing I was hired, how much I would be making, etc. So I sent them the letter, which actually reflected a pay raise. And that was the last I heard from them. Dead silence until the day after the rate lock was up. Then an email saying, "Sorry, we can't do anything for you after all." I immediately called another company to refinance and never looked back. A Chase customer service rep called and asked why I was switching, so I told the story. Then he had the gall to tell me changing jobs wasn't the best time to search for a loan and I could try again if I wanted. Sure, I'd love to throw more money away. Chase can burn in hell and I will never again give them a dime of my money. Story 21. Applebee's. You might be rolling your eyes at me right now thinking, duh, everyone knows it's microwave trash. Or possibly, it's not that bad. It's a simple American chain restaurant, not Tsuki Kobayashi Jiro. For a year, I lived in a Christian children's home in Waco, Texas. This was pre-Gaines Waco, when it was still a crap hole. My impression upon moving there was that the 1953 tornado should have finished the job. The two nicest restaurants when I lived there were Applebee's and Red Lobster. Ergo, every time a family member came to visit, they'd treat me to Applebee's. Post-children's home, I moved in with my father. For the next 5 years, we either ate out or got pickup or delivery every night. Applebee's was one of the few restaurants still open after my father's evening depression map, so we ate there frequently. Sometimes I ordered a sandwich for my lunch the next day. I've eaten at Applebee's easily 100 times over the past 25 years. The last time was a year ago, because I was convinced that there was no way a restaurant could still be so terrible and remain competitive in the current market. I was mistaken. Everything I've ever eaten at Applebee's has been bland, off-texture, overpriced, and altogether regrettable. They can't even get buffalo wings right, and I'll eat almost anything with buffalo chicken in the name. It isn't a regional issue either. I stopped at an Applebee's in Cincinnati while moving from Dallas to Toronto for college, and they somehow managed to produce a totally inedible steak. I will eat a whole bag of Twizzlers for dinner sooner than I'll ever again darken the doorway of an Applebee's. I said, "Good day, sir." Story 22. My boss uses ACT to keep notes about everyone and everything. He has notes going back 15 years for AT&T, many of which say, "Do not use AT&T." He's used AT&T a bunch of times for various things and nearly every time had issues to the point of canceling the service. He might not be that great at learning from his mistakes, but I sure as crap am. I refuse to pay for anything from AT&T. I refuse to recommend my company to use AT&T service. When reviewing services with friends and family, AT&T is automatically excluded from the discussion. If asked about AT&T service, I'll explain why. Also, to clarify, this isn't about their cell service or their customer internet service. This is about AT&T as a whole. I refuse to pay for any AT&T service of any type for any reason. The most recent was that my company migrated the business phones from Verizon to AT&T. Immediately, there were complaints about reception, and I had complaints about manageability of the service. For example, I cannot remotely enable or disable call forwarding. I have to have the physical phone in hand to do this. I cannot move service to a phone out in the field without sending the phone's user to an AT&T store for a new SIM card despite the phone already having a known good SIM card. We had someone whose car got towed while his phone was in it. I couldn't move or turn on call forwarding, so we'd be able to receive the calls elsewhere. I had to move the service off the phone to a spare in the office. I was then later unable to move the service back to the employee's phone once the card had been recovered because that SIM card's already been used. Sorry. He had to drive over 400 miles back to the office for me to switch out the SIM card. If I recall, we had a client cancel a $3,000+ job due to the guy being unreachable, which I guess is partly our fault and partly AT&T's fault. We could also never get a straight answer on why the bill was about $4,500 per month for the first 3 months, and then $7,500 a month for the next 2, despite turning off 4 of the lines. We ended up migrating back to Verizon and adding another "do not use AT&T" note to ACT. Alright, so this is 2 strikes against AT&T, or we're going to get another one? I think we might. Story 23. Walmart. Not for the obvious reasons, but because while I was buying furniture, their customer service was horrible. I bought 2 bookshelves. One box was completely missing hardware. I called them and their only offer was a refund and to call the manufacturer directly for the missing hardware. I work full-time, so anytime I called the manufacturer, they were closed and the email request never actually got to anyone. I moved on from this bookshelf and got another one eventually. It broke while I assembled it. Thankfully, that customer service experience was really good and that bookshelf is holding up so far. The dresser saga, however, was the nail in the coffin. I purchased the same 6-drawer dresser 3 times. The first time, they sent me a box of chairs. No problem, mix-ups happen. The second time, they delivered it in the rain. The box got soaked in the pieces inside. While I assembled it, the thing fell apart because it had gotten wet. I called them up, explained the situation, but they told me they couldn't do an exchange without the box. I explained that I didn't have the box and that the dresser was literal garbage. It took 3 people to explain the situation and get it resolved. I haven't bought anything from them since and plan on never doing so again. Story 24. There's a local burrito chain where I'm from, and everyone always has their bumper stickers on their cars and just in general makes a huge deal about it. So my husband and I decided that we should try it out since it's been around for years and we had never been. The place has a pretty hipstery vibe and seemed pretty chill. You walk in and give your order at the counter, take your drink up and make your drink, and then go sit at your table and wait for your food. I order my food and water. My husband orders his food and a Sprite. The lady behind the counter hands us both white cups. No problem, right? We go and make our drinks and make our way over to our table. On the way, there's a waitress that stops my husband and says very aggressively, "Take it back and dump it out." I was very confused and said, "Excuse me?" She then yells super loudly so that the whole restaurant turns to stare, "Take it back and dump it out. I know the difference between Sprite and water, and that's a Sprite. Now take it back and dump it out." Neither of us could understand why she was being so rude, so my husband dumped his drink out and then returned to our table with an empty cup. Eventually, it dawned on us as we looked around that if you ordered a soda, they gave you a red cup, and the lady at the counter had mistakenly given us both white cups. We were so angry from the way the waitress treated us, we left the restaurant immediately before the food was served. I should have spoken to someone, but we were young and dumb at the time, but we will definitely never go back there. You know, some battles just aren't worth picking, and this is certainly one of them. Just let the Karen have her win and leave and don't come back, like you said. Story 25. Bank of America. As a college-age kid, I decided it was time to start building credit. So naturally, I went to our bank and worked with someone to sign up. One of the interesting options was to use it for overdraft protection instead of my savings account, so I said yes. At the end, the only thing they could do was a card with a $500 limit that locked $500 of my savings account away. I declined and went on my way. A few weeks later, a couple of overdrafts occurred that should have been automatically handled from my small savings account. Obviously, they'd accidentally forgotten to reconnect it, though why would it be disabled just from the credit card application? So I went in and asked that the fees be refunded and the mistake corrected. I ended up having to talk to a fairly high-ish manager, and they wouldn't do it. He said something very much along the lines of, "We're in the business to make money and won't be refunding this." I was livid, and both my wife, then girlfriend, and I closed our tiny checking and savings account immediately, switched to a credit union, and never used Bank of America for literally anything again. It took 20 plus years, but we now have a lot more money, credit cards, mortgages, and all that, and none of them are with Bank of America. F Bank of America. Story 26. Best Buy. Walked in ready to buy my first HD TV because I had money to burn. I was close to the end of shift, so all the workers were over chatting in a corner. Got a guy and asked him about a TV I saw online that they said was in stock. He went to check. Nope, out of stock. He walks off. Okay, picked out a second TV. Found the same guy again. He went to check and turns out that one wasn't in stock. I asked about the floor model. It was broken. He says, quote, "I guess God doesn't want you to buy a TV today," and walks off. So I find a different TV, hunt down a different guy. He tells me I need to go get a pallet. My friend goes to hunt for one, eventually locates one in the parking lot and brings it in. Says she's done and will wait in the car. Guy goes and gets the TV, loads it on the pallet for me. I haul it up to check out, and he grabbed the wrong one, the SD version of the TV. So I just walk out since they're closing in 10 minutes. Spent 45 minutes in there. Went to Circuit City, got the exact same TV I originally wanted for a few bucks less. Doesn't fit in my car, so the guy unboxes it for me and loads it into my trunk. I'm out of there in 15 minutes. All Circuit Cities are closed down a year later. Story 27. Where do I begin? My wife makes fun of me because she says I have a blacklist I'm keeping track of. Ruby Tuesdays. They got rid of Sonora chicken pasta. They're dead to me. Pizzeria Uno's. They got rid of their Sierra chicken sandwich. They're dead to me. Red Robin. They got rid of their pot roast sandwich. They're dead to me. Fuddruckers. They used to have this awesome taco salad back in the day. They completely changed it. Then they got rid of salsa from their toppings bar. Dead to me. Silver Diner changed their entire menu to be more healthy. Now it tastes like cardboard. Dead to me. Texas Roadhouse. 2 police officers were ambushed with an AK-47, 2006, in their own parking lot. They both died. This happened where I live and I knew them both. The local manager of that Texas Roadhouse restaurant, no joke, sent their station a bill for the money they think they lost because of the funeral procession. Really, really dead to me. DirecTV. They charge too much. Them and cable in general. Dead to me. Books.com. Order flowers to be delivered to my wife and mother on Mother's Day weekend. They delivered to my mom. My wife's got lost. Dead to me. Moe's. Got rid of the taco shell bowl for salads. Dead to me. The Walking Dead. The Negan story was way too long and was basically the same story as the governor. This was a long, slow death. Dead to me. I don't even know what's happened in the current season. House of Cards. The previous to last season wasn't good to begin with, but I couldn't even make it through the first episode of the very last season, and I can't rewatch the old ones because that particular Spacey character is way too creepy now. Dead to me. I prefer LA Confidential / American Beauty Spacey, but I'm not one to hold a grudge. Story 28. I have a couple. T-Mobile. After I canceled my service, they just kept billing me anyway. Except I never got the bills, so a year later, I started getting calls from a collections agency. Fortunately, I'm cautious and record all my business phone calls. Synchrony. They've never been pleasant to deal with, and it's always been a pain in the ass to manage my account with them. Google. They use Synchrony for their financing, and they effed my wife and I out of $200 over a trade-in. Mailed in her Pixel for a Pixel 2. They said it was in fact a Nexus and refused to give us any real credit. Comcast. Do I need a real reason? GoDaddy. They supported SOPA/CISPA. Ashley Furniture. Bought some chairs from them. They came damaged. They told me after they were delivered that I could refuse the delivery if they were damaged. I called and they said they'd send replacement parts and send someone to fix them. They don't do anything until after I submit a charge back. They finally send the parts but never follow up on sending someone out to replace them. They fought and won the charge back. Hope it was worth it. I'm never buying from them again. Airline ticket insurance. It's advertised as if everything goes wrong and you can't make your flight, your fare will be refunded, but that's not the case. Had this happen, had some family issues come up and missed my flight. They refused to cover it because I wasn't in the hospital myself. I have more, but these were the first that came to mind. Story 29. Hertz Car Rental. Long story ahead, so feel free to skip to the TLDR. April 2016. The wife and I are on vacation in Vegas. We rented a car from Hertz for the trip and sprung for the insurance in case there were any issues. During our vacation, we decided to take a day trip to the Grand Canyon South Rim. The drive there was fine, no issues. In fact, there were no issues with the car up until this point. We parked the car at a lot near their on-site lodging, Bright Angel, and walked around for a while taking in the view. Upon returning to our car, it won't start. The radio comes on, the dash lights come on, but it won't turn over. No worries, we have the Hertz insurance or whatever. So we call them and they dispatch a local AAA person to come out and see what the issue is. AAA person shows up in a pickup truck, checks the battery, it's good, checks the wiring from the battery, tires, a couple of other things, then says we'll have to call Hertz back. There's nothing more he can do. Okay, whatever. We call Hertz back, tell them what's going on, and now they're on the hunt to find us a car to get us back to Vegas. They claim that since we're too far from Vegas, they cannot dispatch a car from there. I had no idea there was a limit as to where they could get a replacement car from. The only place they claim they can get a car from is at Flagstaff Airport. And guess what? They have no cars available. Now my wife and I are getting pissed. They tell us they'll call us back in an hour or so to see if they can somehow make something happen and get us a car. Keep in mind, our intentions were not to stay over there, but now we're feeling like we're getting the runaround from them. My wife, who was on the phone with them, asked to be escalated to a higher-up manager, who basically tells her the same story. They call us back in a little while and more or less say that they can't do anything more at this time, and we'll have to call in the morning and see about getting the car sent out to us. You want to talk about being furious. We have no clothes, toiletries, etc. on us because it was supposed to be a day trip. Everything is back in Vegas. Luckily, we were able to find a room at a lodge at the park and grudgingly decide to settle in for the night. Next morning, bright and early, the wife calls Hertz. Guess what? They still can't find a car. Now my wife is hysterical, yelling, almost in tears, basically telling these people that our vacation is ruined because they can't commit to helping us out. So after going back and forth between them, here's what Hertz decides to do. Have us towed to a nearby gas station. Then we'll have another tow company, yes, you read that right, another tow company, tow us to Vegas. About 9 a.m., the first tow truck shows up and gets us out of the park. When we get to the garage, we find out that it's going to be at least another 2-hour wait for the next tow truck. The hits keep on coming. I must say, the garage people here were super nice to us and offered us food and drink at no cost, since they knew what kind of night we had. At noontime, the second tow truck shows up. Off we go to Vegas. What seemed like an eternity later, we arrive at the Hertz rental at the airport. After getting out of the tow truck, we're greeted by a mechanic who asks us why we're not getting our car towed back. After we tell our story, they look at us perplexed and say, why didn't they send a replacement car out to you? They could not believe when we told them our ordeal. Now we had to head inside to ask for a complete refund for the rental, as well as the hotel stay, since they agreed to compensate for both on the phone. The counter person listens to our story, then pulls up our account, then politely excuses herself to go to a back office. After what seemed like a half hour, and we're ready to kill someone at this point, she comes out and says the following. Okay, according to our records, you chose to stay overnight rather than get towed back here, so we will only refund the car rental. My wife and I lost it on her. I think the whole rental car area heard us scream at her. 14 hours of frustration and anger all came out. We were never offered to be towed back that evening. They only agreed to tow us all the way back to Vegas this morning. Needless to say, she refunded us everything. We walked out of that terminal with me telling everyone in earshot, if you rent from Hertz and your car breaks down, have an overnight bag handy because they will strand you. The story does have a sort of happy ending, because later that night I won over $1,500 playing craps with a $150 buy-in. Yeah, it's an old wives' tale. Vegas giveth, Vegas taketh away. So in exchange for that awful experience, at least you won a little bit of money back at the craps table. Story 30. Bass Pro Shops. My father and I had some hunting rifles and a lot of hunting gear stolen out of the back seat of his truck at our local Bass Pro Shop, several of which were irreplaceable family heirlooms. The theft itself I do not blame on Bass Pro, but rather the fact that their response to the problem was absolutely appalling. Once we realized that we had been robbed, we called the police. The manager came out and was talking to us about what happened and making small talk. After law enforcement showed up and took our statement, he asked the manager if they had security cameras to help him catch the thieves. The manager replied with, "We don't own the parking lot. It's not our responsibility." Then proceeded to tell us that they had a dozen break-ins in the parking lot within the past month or two, and that it had been a recurring problem ever since the store opened about 5 years prior. I lost my cool at that point. I'm paraphrasing, as this happened almost 8 years ago, but the conversation basically went, so you stupid mother effers know you have an issue, and as opposed to hiring a competent security guard and installing security cameras, you use the bullcrap cop-out of not our parking lot, not our effing problem? To which I received the response of, yeah, pretty much. That was followed by an extended rant that consisted of me mother effing him, Bass Pro, and every other person that I could think of that had anything to do with it. I've never set foot in another Bass Pro, and never will till the day I die. F them, they don't give a crap about their customers. Story 31. I work for a bank with credit cards. Used to do customer protection defense law. Here's what I've picked up. 1. Always buy with a credit card. Always. Amex if you can. Did some work for a possibly shady internet company, and their customer service hated Amex because, quote, they would just give people their money back if they complained. I went right out and got me an Amex. 2. The secret password is chargeback. As of maybe 10 years ago, a chargeback meant the credit card company took your money back for you and charged the company $7 just for the trouble they caused them. If the company wanted to protest, that's another $7. Generally, if you threaten a chargeback, they'll just refund you just because they don't want the extra fines. 3. Read your credit card benefits. Many offer extra warranties if the product breaks or if damaged before the time runs out. 4. Go effing bonkers. Now, it will take you maybe an hour out of your day, but you'll get a sandwich and say, I got nothing but time, when the customer service rep tells you it'll be a while. They're told to put you on hold for escalating minutes and then offer you partial refunds. Just say no and ask to be escalated to a supervisor over and over until one of you can't take it any longer. While this is happening, write up a paragraph complaint. Cut and paste the puppy to your state AG, the FTC, a federal regulator, FCC if it's cable, CFPB if it's a bank, you get the idea, and the BBB. Google the state the company is HQ'd in. I've gotten the VP of Comcast to call me back personally after a BBB complaint. Last but not least, at them on Twitter. I have a Twitter account specifically for complaints. Lyft, Uber, all the internet companies respond quickest to that, I found. Like I said, go nuts. It's gonna take a while, but you have principles, you know? 5. If all that fails, and it rarely does, call your credit card company and dispute the charges, or do it online. Thus ends everything I learned in 10 years of being a consumer protection lawyer and a lot of very angry phone calls to companies I felt wronged me. Also, F Bed Bath & Beyond. They ruined Christmas for my cancer-stricken mother, and I will never forget SodaStream Gate 2009. Story 32. 2 for me. Alamo Music, a local store, rented my kid a flute for middle school band. They offer online payment. Awesome, right? Only they never seem to notice those payments. Same with payments over the phone. Every damn month, we'd pay before the due date. Every damn month after the due date, they'd start calling and demanding the payment we already made. And when we went to cancel and return the instrument, they claimed we hadn't paid for 6 months and tried to get us to pay them $300. Not only had we paid, even if we hadn't, we'd only have owed them $192, because there wasn't, oddly, a late fee anywhere in the contract. There was also a time that, because of overpaying the month before and some bad math on my part, I accidentally underpaid them by a penny. Cue indignant phone calls, emails, and letters, all of which cost them far more than that forgotten cent. The other one, Raising Cane's Chicken Tenders. I took 2 of my kids there once, cause this was back when my oldest son only ever wanted to eat chicken strips whenever we went out. Kid effing loved chicken strips. I figured a store that specialized in them would be the best thing ever. Nope. For one, they're stupidly overpriced. More than that, though, they were just the worst damn chicken strips I've ever had in my life. They obviously rely on their sauce, which they only give you a tiny bit of, and then charge for more, to cover up the fact that the coating for the strips isn't seasoned at all. It just tasted like hot flour. There wasn't even salt in it. I'll usually go to a restaurant twice in case the first time was just an anomaly, but those damn chicken strips were so disappointing none of us is willing to try again. Story 33. Oklahoma. I hopped off the highway to get gas while driving through with absolutely no intention of stopping in Oklahoma except for gas. The gas station was 1 block off the highway and I didn't want to stop, but I didn't have many options as my gas was basically depleted. I was hit and run by teens driving around drinking and doing drugs. My friend had just pulled out my semi-pro Nikon camera to get video of a racist bumper sticker and had turned the camera on seconds before the truck hit us. They drove about a mile or 2 away to a trailer park while we stayed in pursuit. 2 boys and 2 girls hop out that don't even look old enough to drive and run in all directions. One running into the yard the truck parked in front of. You could visibly see them pouring their beers out and tossing various items into the grass. Drugs, I'd assume, etc. We call the cops, who eventually show up. The trailer trash family, along with the driver, come out. The cops' first remarks to the family are, "Ha ha, I see what driving a Toyota gets ya. That American-made truck just tore right through." I'm brown, and my traveling companion is black, and you can tell this cop is one of the good old boys. He addresses us very annoyed, like, as we explain what happened. We show him the footage of the hit and run and pursuit. He makes us stand by our car while he gets real chummy with the family, fills out some paperwork to give us, and tells us we can go. I pull up to where him and the family are talking so I can listen in and be a part of the conversation, at which point he tells me to drive away. I said I'd like to stay and be part of the discussion, and he blatantly tells me to go unless I want more trouble. So I leave. The rest of my vacation was sweet once I made it to California. After getting back home, I receive a letter in the mail stating that after the situation was assessed, I was to blame, but no action would be taken against against me. That crap was insane. I had the entire hit and run on video. What more effing proof did he need? Story 34. Ford. Years ago, go in and buy a car. Get told it's an AWD model. Do paperwork, secure financing. Next day, go and get told it was a FWD model. Took the credit hit. Years later, I buy a F-150. At 44,000 kilometers, the engine blows. Whatever. Buddy Billy building Ford trucks probably frigged it up. Get hail damage on truck. Take it to Ford as they're the only ones who can do body work on the aluminum body. They jerk me around, waste my time saying, oh, we couldn't do it today, which I drive a F-ton back and forth and taking time off work to line up travel accommodations. Last straw is they did an oil change. Didn't put the oil cap on. I noticed it a week later after a lot of gravel driving, so the engine pulled a F-ton of dust. I already had worries about the 2.7-liter EcoBoom unaliving itself, so having the idea the engine is even slightly damaged by being driven and losing over 2 liters of oil, pulling in all the dust and dirt. All they do is a budget-ass job of cleaning up the engine bay and send me on the way. I don't feel comfortable driving the truck as it was coming out of warranty soon. Look to trade it in for a new F-150. They gave me the biggest, more ridiculous offer in the world. Tell them to shove a goose up their chicken hole and went and bought a GM truck. Better service, better truck. Story 35. The Apple Store. I so effing hate that place. Whoever came up with that system is an idiot. Last thing I bought it online with in-store pickup, thinking it would be a snap to just go and pick it up and not have to deal with their bullcrap. Nope. Still had to hunt down the keeper of the list, who was backed up, taking 5 minutes to put in each person's info. Then had to wait around the big center table with all the other people waiting for pickups. They had one person servicing everyone waiting for pickups. Ended up waiting about 45 minutes just to pick up something I'd already paid for online. Apple used to be known for having good UI. The stores used to have counters and registers. Everyone knows how that works. But now, when you go into an Apple store, there's absolutely zero indication of how it works. There's just a bunch of lost people wandering around. Which of these people works here? Which of them can help me? No effing clue. Do I need to be on a list or something? If so, where's the list? How do I get on it? How long is the list? Why is the list keeper always hiding? Oh, wait, today's list keeper is the random person standing by the door who looked at me when I walked in but didn't bother to put my name on the list. F you, lame list keeper person. This is not about having/using Apple products. This is about the Apple Store specifically. I will avoid that place like the plague. Story 36. I used to go to Subway every other week or so. I know it wasn't the best sandwich ever, but it was still better than Jimmy John's and Chiba Hut. That is, until I went there one day and asked for light mayo and mustard on my cold cut combo sandwich. It's like the sandwich artist behind the counter decided now was the time for her to explore her Jackson Pollock phase, because she absolutely effing splattered as much mayo and mustard on my sandwich as legally permissible in my state, and then some. It was borderline drenched, like I had to use 5 to 6 napkins, which I had to wait in line again just to ask for them, just to remove the excess goop dripping out of the wrappers. They wrapped the sandwich in 2 forms of coverings, and it still flowed out of all the tears and openings it possibly could access, as liquids tend to do. The effing glops of the sauce just kept dripping off, or worse, bursting in my mouth as I tried to eat it. It was like trying to eat a really gross, bready gusher, and I couldn't ask for another sandwich because the order process alone took 15 minutes out of my 30-minute lunch break. So I had to just sit there and attempt to choke down this unpleasant hillock that allegedly contained a sandwich beneath the light yellow, slimy pile of sauce that was covering it. You honestly could have taken a loaf of Italian white bread from Subway, dunked it into an oil drum full of mayonnaise and mustard, whisper the words cold cut combo towards its general direction, and you would have something close to what I got. Been 8 months, still haven't gone back. F that place. Still won't go to Jimmy John's though. It's like they purposefully use the Burger King foot lettuce on their sandwiches, and a lot of it. Yeah, this is just a sandwich that you don't even need to eat. If it's that covered in sauce, which excessive mayonnaise and mustard on anything is just plain nasty. I mean, let's be real here. No, that's just, whatever you paid for it, $10, $12 for the foot long, just cut your losses and get something that you're going to enjoy, or just go hungry. If you physically can't swallow it, that's too much. Story 37. This winery in New Jersey, Alba Vineyard. My siblings, then 15, and I called ahead to see if we could get a private tour done of the vineyards with an included wine tasting for our parents on their 25th anniversary. We were told over the phone that they only do tours for groups of 6, but that we could pay for our parents' tour and purchase the rest of the slots in the form of a gift card. That way, they can use the gift card to purchase wine afterward, which ended up being $60. We thought that was a good idea and went with it, and booked our tour. Months passed, and then the day came of the wine tour. My parents went on the tour while my siblings and I just chilled around the town near it for a few hours, and they had a really good time. My sister went inside to pay for the tour plus gift card, and the manager/owner told her that she would just have to pay for the whole group, but that they didn't offer a gift card option like that. My sister was obviously upset about this and asked why an employee would have told her that on the phone and suggested that the manager/owner have a talk with employees explaining this for future customers, and then proceeded to pay the total of $90. While processing the payment, this piece of crap person decided to berate my sister, calling her a stupid little girl and saying, quote, "My staff is trained perfectly by me. You're just lying for free wine." LOL, what? We would have paid $90 either way. We would just get a gift card out of it. He insulted her the entire time the payment was processing, and she came outside crying. We were all livid. She was the only one that was inside when this happened, especially my dad. He stormed in there and gave this manager/owner an earful, saying he couldn't believe how disrespectful he was to his customers, especially teenage girls. The manager/owner rolled his eyes the entire time until my dad hit him with, "I was prepared to purchase a $250 crate of wine today because we enjoyed your product, but after your piss-poor behavior, we won't be doing that." The manager/owner started sucking up, trying to make the sale, to which my dad responded with "F off" and left. The vineyards themselves are nice, but the space to socialize and hang out, they also serve food and do live music sometimes, is crappy and infested with horseflies and rats. Even if the manager/owner wasn't a raging jerkface, I would never recommend going. I sincerely hope they go out of business. TLDR, Alba Vineyard in New Jersey is a dump with a huge a-hole for a manager/owner. Don't go there. Story 38. Express is getting there for me. I don't dress up when I go shopping. I'm a yoga pants and loose t-shirt kind of girl. Because who wants to deal with buttons when you're trying on clothes over and over? The folks that work at Express just look at me like, you clearly can't afford our clothes. But I've loved a lot of their clothes. The jeans, the sweaters, the business casual apparel, so I buy a lot online. Most recently, I purchased a few sweaters. One of them straight up unraveled while I was at work. The seam from the right side, bottom up, through to the wrist on the sleeve just came out, so I was flashing the office. I had to leave work because of the fashion disaster. Before you ask, no, I hadn't washed it yet. This was the first wear. Then, another knit cardigan I had bought also started unraveling. It's a hole, but it's easy to hide, so I haven't stopped wearing it yet. If I'm paying $40 to $60 for a sweater, I expect it to not fall apart on the first wear, at the very least. Then there's the experience I had trying to return something. The store closest to me closed down, so I didn't get to go to a slightly further store until over 3 months later. I tried to return the item, but they said I could only exchange it for something in store that day. No problem, that's their policy. I asked a clarifying question about what to do if the other item I picked up was less than how much the item I was trying to return cost. The guy looks at me super snobbishly and says, quote, "Our store doesn't carry cheaper items than this." Buddy, friend, F you. I haven't been back yet, but I need to find a new place to buy jeans. Story 39. Probably only happened to me about 2 months ago now, but went into Snow Center, ski and board shop, purveying their items for our upcoming ski season here in New Zealand. Looking at jackets, ski boots, pants, everything because I'd not been in a few seasons and I'm finally on good enough money I can afford to comfortably buy some nice ski gear. I get done looking through their items and the lady helping me was awesome. Real nice. Decide to think over what I'm looking at over lunch and leave, only to realize 15 minutes later that I'd left one of my phones there. Work and professional, you know the drill. Get back there and my partner, downtown Auckland, no parking at the time, goes inside and checks around where we were and asks if anyone has handed in a blue Nokia 8. Guy looks behind the counter and says, "Nope, not here." She comes back out and tells me I think the worst and my phone has been stolen. I then remember it has tracking on my phone and I hope to God someone hasn't removed the SIM. Oh look, it's still in the store. I go in and ask the guy behind the counter if he's sure he's not seen the phone. And he says blank to me face, "Look man, I've not seen it." I turn on my ringer on the phone and lo and behold, it's behind the effing counter in this arsehole's pocket. He then has the gall to say, "Oh, that phone." So, F you Snow Center for hiring crap people, and also another big F you because I went and spent 3K elsewhere, where people don't steal your effing phone. Story 40. I'm just going to post my Yelp review of the restaurant Taste of Italy in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. TLDR, amazingly rude owners telling me they have good quality food when it tasted like a pan of burnt oil, garlic knots covered in raw garlic, and stringy Alfredo that was pretty much mozzarella. But the owners take the cake. First off, I'll go ahead and say that most of the staff was friendly and attentive. Our server was very nice, and that's where they get over 1 star. That's where the good ends. The food was severely disappointing. We got our salads, which was chopped wilted lettuce with 1 sliver of mushy tomato, 1 slice of cucumber, and 1 slice of green pepper. Next came the garlic knots, which tasted very yeasty and bland, minus the explosion of butter and jarred garlic on top. Finally, our meals came, and I really hoped it would be the saving grace of this Gatlinburg gem. My veal marsala was incredibly disappointing. The veal itself was incredibly tough and almost seemed breaded as I was able to scrape something off the top. The marsala didn't even taste like marsala. I didn't taste a hint of wine and it just tasted like oil. My wife got the tortellini and for some reason the Alfredo was incredibly cheesy to the point of being stringy, which is not how Alfredo is supposed to be prepared. But we bit our tongue to the waiter because we didn't want to give him a hard time. We went up to pay and the woman asked how our meal was. I said it was okay because I'm very timid and not one to complain. And she questioned why, and a man in a cowboy hat came over to join her. I said that the marsala was and he rebutted with that the veal is $95 a case, and the best you can buy. She then asked us where we're from. We told her Louisville, and she said, everyone loves our veal. And, oh, you just don't know what Italian food's supposed to taste like, which is funny because my wife just got back from a 3-month trip to Europe and visited southern Italy, and I have a culinary degree. I didn't want to give a bad review, and I didn't argue with her because I knew that with an attitude like that, they wouldn't have understood. Don't come here if you don't want to be told that you're stupid. Story 42. FedEx and Lyft. Let me tell you a little story. A few years ago, I had to ship out my PS4 for maintenance. I literally had just bought it the month before, so I was very eager to get it back. PlayStation fixed it and sent it to me FedEx, ETA 2 days, Saturday delivery, signature required. So I stayed in my house all Saturday waiting for a ring at the door. No ring or knock comes, only an email notification. Package undeliverable, no one home. They never even checked to see that I was there. Security footage showed they didn't even bother getting out of their van. They just drove right on by without stopping. I called FedEx and asked them to redeliver and if there was any way they could leave it without a signature. They said a signature was required, that they could redeliver it the following Tuesday, some unknown time between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. I work full-time, so I asked if I could work from home that day. Luckily, I was able to. So I'm sitting around from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. when I get another notification in my email. Package undeliverable. No one home. Again, the van drove by without stopping. I called again. FedEx promised it wouldn't happen again and that they'd redeliver on Thursday. I had to take another day, and work got angry. And then what happened? You guessed it. Package undeliverable. No one home. At this point, I was livid, but I called customer service yet again and somehow managed to calmly explain to them how insane the situation was, and how they were essentially holding my mail hostage, and me by having to stay home for over 27 hours to no avail. The woman informed me that they'd deliver it Friday, but that it would be extended delivery hours between 5 to 8 p.m. As such, they'd charge me $65 for an inconvenience fee. I calmly explained the situation again, and the representative said that she'd process it temporarily, but give me a refund after delivery since it had been such a hassle. I had to go into work Friday. 5 p.m. rolled around and I ran out of the office. I called a Lyft to get me home, a 10-minute journey by car, and about a $7 ride. The Lyft lady pulled up and I hopped in. Then I proceeded to be driven in a massive circle around the city over the course of 65 minutes, even though I could have walked home in about a half hour. I kept asking the Lyft lady where she was headed and received no response. She eventually snidely remarked, "You don't know where you're going." Which is dumb because I put in my own address literally. I cannot stress this enough. Live 10 minutes away from my workplace. Eventually, after making the giant loop from Cambridge to Boston to Chelsea to Alston, back to Cambridge, she finally pulled up on my street. It was 6:22 p.m. I saw, with horror, the FedEx man hop into his truck 10 feet away. I asked the Lyft woman to pull over as this was my drop-off location. She yelled, "No!" Again, I pleaded for her to pull over and she refused. So I jumped out of the effing moving car. into the oncoming traffic lane and landed 6 inches in front of the FedEx truck, which thankfully had stopped. It was raining heavily, no joke. I stood up and hurriedly asked the FedEx guy for my package. He said, "Oh, I just left it over there." I said, "It requires a signature." He said, "Nah." So I looked over to where my package lay, in a goddamn puddle in the pouring rain, outside with no protection. A $400 piece of electronic equipment. And no bloody signature. I ran inside and opened it immediately. Thankfully, it was undamaged. I was soaking wet and miserable. Then I looked at my phone. "Your fare has been updated to reflect your trip." What? I opened Lyft. The charge was $75. I immediately contacted Lyft and explained what had happened. They said that I kept updating my drop-off location to places all around the city. What the F? I responded that it wasn't me, it was my driver, who repeatedly refused to let me out of the car and who ignored me when I asked where we were going. Lyft customer service responded, "We can clearly see you're upset about this trip. Here's a 50-cent ride credit." Are you serious? I responded and asked how it was only a 50-cent credit when I thought I should be refunded for the price difference in my trip, since my driver was the one who kept changing the location, clearly some type of scam, and that it almost cost me something important. I stressed, why would I want to take an hour ride when I literally needed to go 10 minutes for a time-sensitive matter? They responded, "We can see you're still clearly upset. We'd be happy to increase your ride credit to $1. I deleted my account immediately after some strong, though civil, words. As for FedEx, they flat out refused to reimburse me the $65 as they had originally promised. This is the story of how I lost $140 and 3.5 days of my life for a package that was supposed to be delivered for free. This is the story of why I hate FedEx and Lyft with a fiery, burning passion unmatched by anything. Story 43. The entire city of Dixon, California. Years and years ago, some friends and I went to Dixon for their Mayfair. We were edgy high schoolers being edgy high schoolers. Maybe being a little silly, but not causing any trouble. I mean, except for the fact that we had a black kid with us. Within minutes of walking in, we noticed we had a guy tailing us. Everywhere we went, he just watched and followed. Whatever, we rode some rides, watched a band, had some fun, then left. Within minutes of driving away, I got pulled over. One of my taillights was out. This happened from time to time. My car was old and constantly blew a fuse. I kept spares in the glove box. I explained it to the officer. I fully expected a fix-it ticket. I just asked him if he could wait 2 minutes while I changed the fuse, and he could sign the ticket himself so I wouldn't have to find someone else. I essentially got told to slow my roll. He told everyone to get out of the car, specifically said to keep the car running, which, felt like a jerk move already. He was just wasting my gas. When we were out, another officer started searching my car, including digging in my trash, which he had all of us standing with legs apart and hands on our heads while he patted us all down. My friend, the black guy, was asked 2 or 3 times after the pat-down if he, quote, had any guns or drugs, boy? After about 20 minutes of searching, running all our information, and eventually deciding that there was nothing they could pin on us, they let us go. I didn't get a fix-it ticket after all. That was over 20 years ago, and despite living fairly close to Dixon and driving through there every couple months, it was the last time I did any business there. Seriously, F Dixon. Story 44. Apple. They're just getting worse and worse. They no longer hold their name of being precise and perfect, clean and smooth. The iPhone designs are getting uglier each year with even uglier business practices. My MacBook, the newest version with surprisingly crap graphic cards, crashed the second week of purchase from running basic Adobe softwares. I took it back to the store to check if its hardwares are normally installed, and they tell me they simply can't do so unless they ship it out to their technician, which would take approximately a month and approximately $1,700. I live in the US, without Apple Care. I thought he was joking and asked if it's because checking hardwares is too difficult and stuff, and he simply replied, most of the fee is a shipping fee, and everything you want them to fix costs at least this amount. When I walked away, he seemed angry and increased his voice. A lot of people do this, because how dare me turning down such a kind offer when anybody else didn't? I went across the street to a computer repair place. The guy takes the back off my MacBook, reminding me that if the second it's detached, I lose all warranty from Apple. I said go ahead, as if those warranties are going to help me. He messed around the fans for a minute and tells me that should be good. Turns out my Mac shut itself down from overheating because the fans weren't working properly. I'm sorry, I don't know what exactly caused it to happen. I'm no electronic geek. To me, Apple is like a dying video game that just sells all of its best gear to the richest players before shutting down. The company is far, far from bankrupt, but it's none of my business now because that company and its luxuries already died for me. Story 45. College. I ran out of money halfway through my degree. Couldn't get financial aid because on paper my mom makes good money, and she was at one point helping put me and my two siblings through college all at the same time with no help from my dad. Honestly though, dropping out was the most freeing thing. I finally could see the world in front of me like there was nothing I couldn't do. Degrees are fine for some things, but you can still do fine without one. College has become such a scam. The school I went to ran a train on its students financially while promoting Bernie Sanders. I went to a very small liberal arts college, and the amount of corruption was astounding. Aside from basic language arts, math, etc., we were required to take 5 of these humanities courses that were just bullcrap history, anthropology, liberal arts stuff. It was supposed to make us well-balanced, but never were there any STEM classes required or considered humanities, so how can you say it's to keep us well-rounded? The people on the board that decided what could and couldn't be considered humanities were all the people already teaching those courses. The people on that board were also the ones who wrote the textbooks for those classes. You might think that since you're required to take that class and the teachers wrote the textbooks, they'd cut you a deal on them. Nope. One of the most expensive textbooks in the bookstore. They looked like a middle schooler's science project. Clear plastic cover bound by the swirly crappy notebook spines. Nobody would have taken those classes otherwise. They were miserably boring. None of the teachers in that department brought any energy to class aside from maybe 1 or 2 out of 40 or 50. I tried to take one of those courses, but I couldn't make it through more than one lecture after the professor spent orientation day talking about what a cool 52-year-old he was and how all of his students loved him and thought he was so cool because he was a bass player or something. The year before I left, the school spent $1.3 million on renovating the cafeteria, which it looked awesome, but the food quality went way down. Take a year off after high school, and if you still want to seek a higher education, then by all means do it. Get an associate's at your community college. It's cheaper, and honestly, I know plenty of successful people who started there and went on to get a 4-year or just left it at that. Okay, so I'm not going to tolerate any slandering of bass players. As one myself, we are so shunned and overlooked, always in the shadow of the singers and the lead guitar players. Show your bass player some love. Give them a hug. The next time you see them on stage, it will go such a long way. Story 46. United Airlines. They've always been crappy, but our last experience was the final straw. We were standing in a long check-in line for an international flight, and a United employee was walking through the line to see who was going where so she could direct them to the right line. When she came to us, she said we could go in a shorter line. I emphasized it was an international flight, and she assured us we were good to go to the other line. So we went to the shorter line. When it came to our turn, the check-in agent told us we were in the wrong line as this line was for domestic flights only. We explained we were told this was the line to be in, and she said, "Why do they keep sending international people here?" So it obviously wasn't the first time. So we went back to the original employee who told us to go to the wrong line, and her response was, "I didn't tell nobody to do nothing," and walked away. When we pleaded with her to at least help us, maybe get expedited in the right line so we could make our flight, she just pointed to the end of the line and said, "You need to be here." So naturally, we missed our international flight. We spent the next 3 hours being sent from one ticket agent to the next to try and get another flight. They each sent us to someone we had already talked to until we were literally sitting on a curb outside the terminal. Finally, we had to buy new full-fare tickets for the 3 of us and lost 2 days of our already tight trip overseas. 6 months later, I finally got a refund for the original tickets that we couldn't use and that they resold anyway. So they were trying to double their money. Never again, United. Story 47. Progressive Auto Insurance. Prior to filing a claim, I was with them for about 2 years starting in 2016. Renewed my insurance quarterly several times with no issue. Fast forward to last year, I was involved in a multi-car accident. 6 to 7 cars in wintry conditions. My 2015 Jeep was nearly totaled, and the customer service rep, Kevin, refused to do anything but talk in circles and deflect from giving a straight answer as to my claim. He assured me everything was on the up and up, and everything would be settled once he got the police report. I offered to fax or email him the police report directly, and he refused, saying it was mandatory to get it directly from the responding police agency. While Progressive was waiting for the police report, I received 3 letters over the course of a week, one of them being a certified letter asking for my tax return from the prior year, my pay stubs for the last year, an original birth certificate, my social security card, and at least one utility bill with my name on it. Mind you, this whole time I'm taking a Uber/Lyft to and from work because I don't know who the F I'm supposed to get my rental car from, or where my Jeep was towed to, or who's doing the repairs. I'm thinking, what in the literal F is this bullcrap? I call, repeatedly trying to figure out what the F is going on. I receive no direct answer, only this crapbag customer service rep, Kevin, with a severe speech impediment, somehow directing his call straight to my voicemail, saying that there's nothing to worry about, and those letters were mistakenly sent. Another week goes by, just for this F-bag Kevin to tell me my claim has been denied for fraud because I failed to submit the documents that he requested. After this a-hole told me not to submit the documents because it was an error, I didn't have to submit said documents. If you're Kevin with the effing mumbling lisp from Progressive, F you, you piece of crap. Story 48. CenturyLink. This is maybe a little long, but it's a decent story if you're into this kind of thing. I had their internet service for a couple years. I ended up going through a divorce, and the account was in my ex's name. She moved out. I was in the process of switching a number of things over into my name from my ex's name when I called CenturyLink to do this. At first, they seemed very helpful. The lady I was talking to put me on a brief hold after I explained that I needed to transfer the bill into my name, and when she came back, she said that the best thing for us to do was going to be to cancel the existing account and then open up a new one in my name. She said that this way I would be able to qualify for some great new promotional deal. So I thought, okay, that sounds good, and let's go ahead and do that then. After the rep had finished creating the new account, she transferred me over to the department that helps with canceling old accounts. I seriously don't think the poor girl had any clue what was about to happen to me after this. She seemed to honestly believe she'd done me a favor, and that the old account was about to get canceled quickly and painlessly. The dude I got transferred to next introduced himself as Jamie, and after very cordially asking and being answered as to how he could help me, he said, "Okay, absolutely. We can go ahead and get this started for you. Let's just get the ball rolling and apply this $395 early termination fee to your account, and then we can get it canceled out for you right away. Does that sound good?" The bright, friendly enthusiasm with which he was addressing me seemed to be only just barely concealing this weird, sadistic enjoyment. It was really creepy. I just worked this all out with another one of your representatives? Let me explain. And I explained. I could hear by his tone that Jamie's eyes had narrowed. I'm perfectly well aware of the arrangement that you've made, and I'm telling you that, in order to cancel that old account, you're going to pay the early termination fee. It doesn't matter what you were told. I responded mildly. Something was wrong with this guy. Okay, well, I guess I'll have to speak to a supervisor or something. Thank you, Jamie. That's when he went nuts. Actually, there are no supervisors here, no managers, just me, and I have free license to do as I will with these accounts. And if you cancel this account, then not only will you pay the termination fee in full, I'm going to remove every promotional deal that's been applied to this new account. Your payments will start out at some exorbitant dollar amount per month. You'll never see those deals. Try me. You want to see if I'm telling the truth? Just try me. His tone had morphed from whatever it had been before to some kind of thinly veiled rage/mania. He sounded now like he had just finished doing some cocaine and taking a couple shots of whiskey, and was in a bad mood. It was clear that my best shot was simply going to be trying to talk him down somehow, try to stop him from doing anything malicious, and then call back again and explain what had happened to another representative, try and get a hold of a manager, etc. So that's what I did. I just started apologizing and explaining that maybe we should forget about the new account and keep the old one, and keep my payments the way they were at present, and forget about the whole thing. This ended up working, and the new account was canceled. Afterwards, I called back, explained what had happened to a different rep, and they applied some sort of discount to my account for the coming year, which was nice, but didn't solve the original problem. Fortunately, my ex and I were still on congenial terms, and I always pay on time, so it wasn't a huge deal, yet. But it doesn't end there. Fast forward to a few months later, I moved to a new apartment and called a couple weeks ahead to make sure CenturyLink was aware of the move, and that they would transfer service on the appropriate date. I got an email or a letter back alerting me that the changes had been successfully applied to my account, and that service would be active at my new place when I got there. I just took this at face value. I'd been through the same process before and hadn't had a problem. When I moved in, though, I actually didn't have service at the new apartment. I called and reported the issue, and they apologized and made an appointment to send out a technician to have a look. When the tech got there, he did some testing, and it turned out that the property actually didn't have the necessary wiring to extend service into my unit. The technician they'd sent out said that he had no idea how they could have possibly reported to me that service would be active at this new address, and that under circumstances like this, all I could do would be to pay for new low-voltage wiring myself or cancel the account. I expressed my concerns about canceling the account, citing my previous experience as the reason. He said that my story was incredibly unusual, and that this would never happen under these circumstances, and not to worry about anything like that. There wasn't much I could do, so I said, okay. The next month, I got a bill for services I had never used at the new property. My account was still open, and I was still being charged, despite not having any physical access to their network in my dwelling. I called and reported the oversight, and the representative I spoke with apologized and assured me that they get it all cleared up, and not to worry. This happened for 3 more months. Every month, the bill would include the previous month's, so it ended up being like almost $500 by the end of all this. It was just nuts. I would call every month and explain what was happening, and every month the person I spoke with would be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Yes, I can see here that this has been our mistake somehow. You can go ahead and disregard the bill." The bills did stop coming after a number of months, but apparently CenturyLink never actually corrected their mistake, because we learned, a couple years later, that the account had gone into delinquency and was handed over to collections, and my ex got a bill for something to the tune of $485, if I remember correctly. Fortunately, I had saved my records having to do with the final cancellation ordeal and advised my ex to open up a fraud claim with the collection agency, and was able to send her these records in order to prove her innocence. But yeah, CenturyLink for sure. Story 49. American Airlines. My sophomore year of college, I had a Calculus 3 exam at 10 a.m. on the Monday after spring break. I scheduled my travel so that I landed back in College Station at 11 a.m. on Sunday and would have all Sunday afternoon to study. The flight to College Station from Dallas-Fort Worth was supposed to board at 9:45 a.m. At 9:50 a.m., the message board said that the flight was delayed until 11 a.m. At 11 a.m., it said that it was delayed until 1 p.m. This continued until 11 p.m. when a service representative came out and said that buses were being sent to drive us to College Station. I boarded my bus at 1 a.m. on Monday and got into College Station at 6 a.m. I called to complain and request a refund, and the American Airlines service representative laughed at me. She said that I purchased a ticket for transportation between Dallas and College Station. It didn't guarantee air transportation. They had successfully transported me to the destination, so I would not be getting a refund. I later learned that the reason for the delays and eventual cancellation of the flight is that they had forgotten to schedule a flight crew for the flight. More recently, I decided to attempt to fly with American again. American Eagle is the only airline to fly into my parents' town. I booked a flight from IAH, Houston Bush, to DFW and then on to my parents. I went to check in at the airport and found out that they had switched the flight from IAH to Houston, the Houston Hobby, which is almost an hour drive away. I and about 20 people behind me in line all missed our flights. This happened right after American bought US Airways, which flew out of Hobby, and their flight system was all messed up. They never apologized or refunded me. F American Airlines. Story 50. Hotels.com. They're the worst. Use them to get a hotel room. At the time, I had 3 young kids and 2 twins required a crib. Get to the hotel that I booked through Hotels.com, assured by hotel manager that they did have cribs. I get to the hotel room and there are no cribs. I go back down to the front desk 5 minutes after checking in, and hotel manager lies to my face and says he did not say they have cribs. My brother was next to me the entire time and about lost his crap after the hotel manager just lied to our faces 5 minutes later. Plus, the room smelled like an ashtray of cigarette smoke. We call Hotels.com and they say there's nothing they can do. I tell them that the hotel is not providing cribs, which is a health hazard, plus the cigarette smoke smell. I ended up booking another hotel room, not with Hotels.com, disputing the charge with my credit card company and getting refunded. I travel about 60 to 70 nights a year for business, and I will never use Hotels.com ever again. I also make sure to share this story with every person I know. F you, Hotels.com. Story 51. Well, okay, this is going to sound petty AF, but I guess it's the same everywhere. However, just in case, here in New Zealand, when you go any damn place where physical currency is exchanged hand to hand, when receiving change, it's placed politely and quickly in the palm of the customer's hand. I've worked many jobs in retail and managed a knack for doing so perfectly almost every time. We aren't told to do it, it's just what we do, you know? So, flashback about 5 years. I'm 19 at this point in time. Also, I'm a guy, if that matters. And I'm working as a laborer in my small hometown town of about 3,500 people at the time. After I finish a hard, bloody day of digging holes for a foreman who must have forgotten his bloody hands at home, if you know what I mean, I decided I'd pop into a local favorite bakery for steak and cheese pie and coffee for the short walk home. Before I started booping terminals with my phone, I had cash, but currently had too big a note to pay for the small indulgence. After I pay, I wait a wee bit, then my arm goes into autopilot, and I politely extend my hand for the change, and this person behind the counter, this chaotic neutral, burning world watcher behind that counter, put the small, singular coin with an audible clunk on the countertop, right beside my hand. I had never experienced that before. I was weirdly startled, inwardly, by what had just happened. I thought long and hard on the walk home that I'd never step foot in the store again. Now that I'm a little bit more mature, it seems like I may have blown the whole thing out of proportion, but I work in the city about 220 kilometers away, and have done so for the last 3 years. So the vow is very easy to keep. Ha! Never again, bakery name. Never again. So I don't know if this is satire or what. What the hell is this guy talking about? I feel like I just warged into someone's acid trip. I have no idea what just happened here. Story 52. A local Shell gas station. In 2013, my sister quit her job there and she got nothing over her 2 weeks of hard work. She was overworked, and in the employment statement, there is a need to pay the worker their deserved salary. My sister only got the money after my mom had to go into their office to negotiate with her boss. Keep in mind, my sister was 16 and a very shy person. 2017, it's my turn to work there because I'm a dumbass who wouldn't listen to my sister who tried to stop me. 2 months in, everything is fine, but then, one fateful morning, I was given a week-long break before they ceremoniously sacked me. As for the reason, it was twofold, but the second fold is mostly my speculation. That morning, a new kid was hired a few days prior, and he mistakenly put in petrol in a diesel engine. The driver was reasonable, thank God, and I felt responsible as I was kind of the person who distracted him as he was filling the car, but the thing was, he wasn't even supposed to be filling the car. We took the car into a vacant parking space, and I manually pumped out all the oil out of the engine. I was told the driver wanted to meet with the boss to ask for refund and damages, but this was misconstrued as being a threat to the boss. When they called me in for the last time to sack me, they showed me 3 things: my pay slip, and my report. The report had 3 reasons to why they sacked me. Basically, the 3 things are: 1. Failure to report the incident ASAP. 2. Failure to report the privacy of the owners. 3. Negligent work ethics. All of which were bullcrap because I did report the incident ASAP. And what privacy do I need to protect when a customer needs to see you to talk about his damages on your business? And I wasn't the one who put petrol in a diesel engine. It was the boss's nephew. That's my second fold reason. The boss can't afford to pay me and his niece and nephew. The niece and nephew both came in on the same day. It was a very crappy experience with 3 crappy bosses who think they're so much better than everybody. No wonder they change workers every month. Who the F can take it? Story 53. Some of you may be familiar with ECS tuning if you drive and work on European cars. There's a Facebook page called Why I Hate ECS Tuning that goes into depth on why they're such a crappy company, with horrible working conditions for their staff, horrible customer service, horrible shipping practices, horrible order fulfillment, horrible quality of their in-house components, and horrible practice of buying up well-respected local parts stores and making them incredibly crappy just like themselves. I was doing the brakes on my BMW last year on a Friday morning and ran into an unexpected issue with the caliper guide pins and bushings. They were worn in an odd way. So I looked online and the only place that had them in stock was ECS Tuning. I called just to be 100% sure they would ship overnight, placed the order, paid $40 extra for the overnight shipping. They proceeded to rob me of my $40 overnight shipping fee and send the parts via FedEx SmartPost, which is literally the world's worst garbage excuse for a shipping service in existence. The car I required for commuting would be out of service, so I put my brakes together with the old guide pins and ended up replacing the pins the next weekend once they had arrived. When I contacted their customer service, they literally hung up on me twice as I attempted to get a refund for the shipping service that they charged me for, but did not provide. Contacting them by email resulted in no response. The Facebook page has many, many more examples. Story 54. I'm sure this gets said a lot, but I'm not buying another Apple. So I worked in sales and I worked closely with their products. My parents bought me a 2015 MacBook Pro 15 in with Retina display. Literally a year later, the display went out, started flickering and jumping, / would hardly work right. Took it to the Apple store in Walnut Creek where they ran a diagnostic and discovered it was the logic board, and they wanted to charge me $600 because I was literally 30 days out of the warranty. Nobody wanted to help me, so I put my foot down with the GM. Because either they're lying about being the most reliable brand in the world, or they're refusing to take care of the customer. They took care of it for free, but another year later, the MVP does the same thing yet again. I do some research, and it turns out there's a super flimsy ribbon cable that's notorious for going bad in these models. I found one for literally $13 on Amazon and swapped it myself. Runs like a champ. But the fact that they were going to charge me $600 for a $13 fix really crunches my Doritos. On top of that, I'm kind of a conspiracy believer when it's coming to the Face ID in all the new iPhones. There's no way a face is more secure than a fingerprint, and with all the media about deepfakes going around, nobody needs a vector map of my face made with infrared dots. Absolutely not. When a company has the power to make your likeness do and say anything on video, that's too much power in my opinion. Especially when Tim Cook and Jeff Bezos were on President Trump's board of advisors. Like, no thank you. Story 55. CenturyLink. They've sent my account to collections 4 times. Why? Because I returned my modem nearly 4 years ago and they didn't record it as being returned. So every single time they send me a collections notice, I call them and tell them that I did return it. I give them the tracking number, they verify that it was their fault, and then we do it all over again. The most recent time was a couple months ago, which was over 3 years since I returned the damn modem. So I called back and I basically asked what the hell I needed to do to get them to stop harassing me. I sent them pictures of me putting the modem in the airdrop. I sent them the tracking number, and they say that the tracking number isn't showing anything anymore. I'm like, no crap, it's been years. It probably doesn't show anything anymore. The guy puts me on hold for half an hour and then hangs up on me. I call back, they say that I have to settle it with collections. I tell them no, they can fix it. It's a problem that they created. They transfer me to a manager and then they tell me that I need to give them my customer PIN for that account or else they can't do anything. They literally wanted a PIN for an account that I haven't even used in years. So I told them I didn't even remember having a PIN for that account, and I crap you not, the lady says, quote, "It's a new policy in the last year, but I can't do anything without it." So my account that's been closed for years has a PIN that I'm supposed to know about, even though it's a new policy? I think I finally got them to fix it. We'll see if I get any more collections notices, but seriously, F them. Always, always, always get a tracking number and have photographic evidence if you ever have to return something to CenturyLink or Comcast or any internet provider, really. They will F you so hard if you don't. Story 56. This probably isn't exactly what you were going for, but it's what came to mind. After my previous psychiatric provider lost 2 psychiatrists at super short notice, I ended up going to someone in the area who they had recommended. This sucked because it was half an hour away from my home, and I didn't drive at that time, so I had to take an Uber or Lyft. I had a few issues with this new place at first, but I finally got through my intake and had an appointment with the psychiatrist. I have depression, anxiety, autism, ADHD, and PTSD. The PTSD was mostly under control at the time, but I was of course asked about it. I explained that I, a young trans man that had been SA'd by 2 guys who I had met the day or so before. It was a situation where they had no reason to know they were assaulting me because I felt pressured by the situation to act a certain way, and they couldn't have known that. Anyways, after explaining this to the psychiatrist, he told me I was lucky that I was only assaulted once because many people had it happen repeatedly. While it is true that I was luckier than some, no one who's been SA'd is lucky, and a mental health provider should know better than that. I stayed long enough to get my meds renewed and then booked it, telling the receptionist I wouldn't be coming back. Story 57. So many boycotts. 1. Creekside Gardens, a landscaping and plant store in my area, because the last time I was there, a bird was injured, and instead of letting me take it to my father, a vet, they picked it up with a shovel and threw it in a dumpster while I cried and begged them to let me try to help it. 2. Pizza Hut, but only one location in my area because the last time I ordered, I waited 2 hours, several phone calls, and when my pizza arrived, it was cold. When I refused it, the driver told me I still had to pay for it. I tossed him off my porch and called the manager, who also said I still had to pay. I didn't. I disputed the charge with my bank and got my money back and will never go there again. 3. A local Italian restaurant where I ordered carryout and they forgot my pizza until I walked in to pick up my food. They kept telling me 5 more minutes. Finally, I just left and told them to shove their pizza in their asses. 4. The McDonald's closest to my house where the manager once refused to accept $2.14 in 18 quarters, 1 dime and 4 pennies. When I called/emailed corporate, I got no response. 5. A whole entire town, Poland, Ohio, because a cop pulled me over and ticketed me for having one of my rear license plates out, and then a few years later, same town, different person, ticketed me for a license plate holder which is, in his opinion, obstructed my license, but which was the one that the dealer puts on when you buy a car. I should add that it was also on my car when I got the previous ticket for the license plate light. That guy didn't seem to mind it. I won't even drive through that town. They stay afloat writing bogus tickets. I'm sure I'll think of more. I'll come back. Story 58. Midwest Moving Company. We meticulously planned a cross-country move, lining up jobs, planning the route, scheduling meetups with our future landlord and employers, working out the timing of packing up before the driving, and timing out the delivery so we would be at our new home when things were supposed to arrive. It did take some planning and research. We booked our move months ahead. The company scheduled our pickup in the middle of our last week. The afternoon of, we didn't hear anything, and it was getting around the time range they said they would arrive for pickup. I called the company. They said they would be coming on the weekend since the house they were moving was larger than normal. Okay, no big deal. We've just been sitting in a packed up apartment all day waiting to move. The weekend comes, so we get to the apartment to meet up with the crew. Waiting around, but again, no call. We waited till they missed the time they were supposed to pick up all our belongings. I called and got put through to the truck driver. He let me know the last job they picked up from was too big and there was no longer room for us. We should try another company, and he hung up. What the F? I was so angry they could just casually drop our move. Our deposit was paid, so secure our place on the truck. We were screwed. My girlfriend and I were leaving in 3 to 4 days. I called the company and they could care less. They did refund my deposit, but what good is that? What are the chances I'll find a reputable moving company in that time? Moving companies are so sketchy. It took us shifting through loads of services to find one that could even take our move. Yikes. We spent the next few hours emailing and calling as many companies as we could. It was frantic. We ended up staying past our date we thought we would be moved out by and had to end up paying rent for that month. Midwest Moving still did not empathize or realize how much they effed us over on the move. We eventually did find a company that was within our price range that would take us the day before we left to drive across the country. They were passing through our area just by chance and happened to have room. The second moving company was a big lifesaver and really made it work for us. If you're moving across Canada, I would recommend Canadian Moving Systems. They really helped us out of a nightmare. I ended up reviewing the moving company on Better Business Bureau. Online, they still argued their position and did not want to admit how much of a jerk move it is to cancel someone's move 3 days after they were supposed to pick up. Irresponsible. Story 59. America's Best. Now, I've been with lens crafters all my life, and I've been wearing glasses since grade 1. Every time I've had an exam, I've gotten lenses perfectly suited to my eyes, and I've never had one eye struggle to focus because of my glasses. I can literally feel my left eye rotating so it can match my right eye's line of sight. Not only that, I can tell that my left eye's prescription is not strong enough to focus on faraway objects. This old pair I have from Lens Crafters is more accurate as I'm able to see longer distances in greater detail. Now on to the process. Scheduling was fine and all the staff was decent enough. I got into the exam and I was able to go through no problem, except for when we got into the lens machine thingy. She went from 1 to 6, which is odd since I've always had it 1 to 8 at Lens Crafters. I get my prescription a week later and holy hell, it's painful to see out of my left eye, but the doctor said, you'll get used to it in a month. That's the biggest effing lie of my life. I'm now 23 and have changed my glasses prescription at least 5 times, and a doctor has never told me it takes a month to get used to glasses. If they don't work on the spot, then they're not correctly done. So then I get back for a recheck with another doctor who's much younger, almost my age actually. Then the first, and in the process of checking my eye, he stops at only 4, and very obviously is annoyed. tells me that the prescription is right and I'm basically an idiot for thinking that glasses would ever be a perfect fix for my vision. Yes, an eye doctor told me that glasses don't correct vision entirely. I couldn't believe my ears. Now I have astigmatism in my left eye, so it makes sense that it wouldn't be the easiest thing to correct. But I've had multiple doctors do it correctly before, so these amateurs are clearly not capable doctors. No, I'm not a lens crafter's shill, even though I've probably said it like 20 times in this paragraph, but at this point, they're the only ones I should probably trust. Story 60. Warning, wall of text incoming, Fuddruckers. Nothing wrong with the food there. In fact, it's actually pretty effing bomb depending on my mood. I worked there for nearly 7 years and worked my way up into management. Only a shift leader, but still technically management without the pay. I'm fully aware of how to manage my labor. It's slow, send people home. It's supposed to be busy, schedule accordingly. Pretty straightforward. My issues lie with upper management. They would always hound us to cut labor, even at the expense of service. Even if we cut labor and were under our weekly budget, we would still get bickered at because it wasn't good enough. And not surprisingly, the store isn't going to be cleaned enough to satisfy upper management standards. We always got great scores with the health department, so there were no sanitary issues, but we were always bickered at to cut labor and have the store spotless. I'm sorry, but that's effing impossible. You can't have both, especially if you're mostly hiring teenagers with crap work ethic. Right now, Lubby's Fuddruckers is spiraling down the toilet. In my city, they just closed 2 stores within the past year and gave absolutely no warning. Not even the general manager of those 2 stores knew. District manager came in before the GM showed up and told him or her right then and there that the store was closing. And the DM must have known for months ahead of time because another DM in another district gave their employees 3 months head up about closures. The managers got transferred to the remaining stores and I don't effing know what happened to the employees. Amidst all these closures, which appears to be nationwide, an employee sent this email to every email in the company. TLDR. Fuddruckers has forgotten what it was originally known for and keeps trying to introduce new crap to people who don't give a crap about it. I have a few remarks to pass up the line from someone who's on the ground level, and I don't know how to get this to who needs to read it, so I'm sending it to everyone, I think. Fuddruckers is in a shamble of a state. We have changed our menu and recipes a number of times since I've been here, and that's been a relatively short amount of time, 6 months or so. We need to stabilize. I have a few suggestions that I think would solidify our customer base instead of jostling them around and praying that somehow new customers will randomly come to us. Fuddruckers used to be about the world's greatest hamburger. I was a patron of several years personally. But then Fuddruckers started to change itself. It got away from its roots and solid foundation that made it great. It's a simple concept. The world's greatest hamburger, and that used to be what you could buy at Fuddruckers. But now, nobody really knows what Fuddruckers is except desperate. We've displayed that disparity by adding promotional items and salads and random milkshake flavors and coupons and deals. My strict opinion is that we need to get back to basics. Back to basics, in my eyes, means the world's greatest hamburger is its own attraction. We do not need promotional burgers, whose products will either get wasted when we throw them away because we're not selling enough to warrant shipping a case of product to each store, and the distributors won't allow us to ship any less. We do not need to carry salads, but we jumped on that ship, and we did grow a lot of customers with them. And then we randomly ripped away the variety of salads we had available to our guests. We lost a lot of business with that move in the urban locations, with businesses all around and all the busy people trying to get healthier by what they eat instead of changing their lifestyles. Allow stores to carry the supplies for whatever salads they can make money on, because frankly, salad is a low food cost item that seems to sell. We do not need to have promotional milkshakes. We need to get back to basics. Strawberry, chocolate, vanilla, Oreo. These promotional shakes just cost us with having more product than there will ever be needed by giving a store a single case. Plus, they just don't sell as well as the basics. We probably sell triple or quadruple the number of classics when compared to our promotional shakes. Additionally, they don't build any business. The only people who purchase them are people who are already planning to buy a milkshake, which is not even close to a quarter of our guests. All that being said, the next one is going to be a doozy. We sell the world's greatest hamburger. We need to start acting like it. When you give out coupons for our food, what you're saying to the general public is that our product is worth less than what we sell it for. I can just imagine the conversation now. Don't go there. It's only worth it when they put out a coupon. We can get the same thing cheaper somewhere else. Never mind that they can't really get it cheaper anywhere else, because it's the world's greatest hamburger. That's just how people react to such things, so stop devaluing our product by making it a sometimes food. And finally, get rid of those ridiculous specialty burgers. I'm not talking about exotics. Don't get me wrong, too many of those can be a problem, but the bottom line is, how do you give a guest a build your own world's greatest hamburger experience when you've already built it for them? That's the opposite of our mission statement and should be viewed that way. The menu should be simple. Choose your meat, choose your size, choose your bun, choose your premium toppings, choose a side, choose a drink. When I look at our menu, all I see is a whole bunch of fanfare that doesn't mean much, except that I can expect to not find what I'm looking for without help from a cashier or some other crew member. People are proud and don't want to ask for help. They want the simple truth laid out in front of them. The simple truth is, we sell the world's greatest hamburger. Let the taste be the fanfare, and let people realize that we're not some fantasized flailing failures that don't know which way is up, but a solid granite business where you can rely on them to give you exactly what you asked for. I don't know about our customers, but if I want a burger with pepper jack cheese, bacon, and avocado, I'm going to think about wanting a Tex-Mex burger. But I'm going to go somewhere where I can get what I want, not some place who wants to tell me what to call my burger. If I wanted to be told what to call my burger, I'd go get a Big Mac and call it a day. We used to be a great company. That's the whole reason I wanted to join. We could still get back to that. But with all the upper management turnover and menu changes and recipe changes, we seem to have forgotten our core values and mission statement. Focus, courage, and commitment are the big three that rise up in my eyes. We're not focused on anything but the money. I don't have inside eyes on how bad our debt situation is, so this is only conjecture, but in my experience, if you build something solid, business will build itself. Start with quality and service, and the customers will come in no matter what you're selling. But if you can't decide what you want to sell on a given period, or start sending out coupons declaring that we essentially sell our products for more than we should, then we'll never build a solid customer base, except on coupon days. In closing, I want to say that I believe in this company. I think some things need to change, and I have the courage to stand up and say it to everyone. That's one of our core values, after all. I think we can be the greatest burger franchise in the world, and maybe I look like an idiot, but that's what I believe. If you made it this far and have worked in the restaurant business, a lot of this probably sounds extremely familiar. If you know a company has terrible upper management, you should not give them a effing cent. Story 61. Oregano's. My girlfriend begged me for over 2 years to try this place out. Now, I'm from a city that's largely recognized as having the best Italian restaurants in the country, all within a stone's throw from each other. So the thought of me going to a chain restaurant to eat Italian food didn't make sense. Thing is, the state I currently live in is not known for its culinary offerings, and most people here drool at the thought of going to Oregano's. It's what they're used to. Can't blame them. After begging me over and over and telling her a million times that I already knew the food was going to suck and that I knew where the food came from, I finally said yes, only because she agreed to pay. Well, guess what? We go to this restaurant and immediately out of the gate there was a problem with our drinks. Then we ordered some effing disgusting ass salad that for some reason had nacho strips in it that were stale, literally stale. It was horrible. Then they brought out a lasagna that tasted like cardboard and was cold on the inside with some soggy-ass garlic bread that had a mountain of margarine, not even butter, on it with a hint of garlic somewhere in there. I didn't even have to criticize the food. My girl was so pissed and embarrassed at the same time, but we ate and took the 20-minute drive home in complete silence. When we got home, we looked at each other and she said, "I already know, never again." Story 62. Petco. As the mother of a dying cat, I was desperate to get him to eat, so I bought probably $30 in cat food. I contacted these cat food companies asking for samples, but they directed me straight to the pet store, saying that you can return any food that you're unsatisfied with, opened or not. Petco has the same policy. Great. With my receipt, a few days after my cat passed away, I attempted to return the food. The cashier was great. Cue the manager walking over and flipping out, saying, "You can't do this," giving her cashier a hard time and giving me a hard time. She literally made me feel like I was crazy, embarrassing me in front of a whole line of people in the store. After arguing with her for a few exchanges, she told her cashier to just finish the return, and the manager walked away. I got into my car and just broke down into tears. I was mortified and still numb from my cat passing away. I can't even explain how she made me feel. It was awful. I told Petco Corporate about it, and they said they would contact the manager and apologized. They even said that the manager tried to contact me several times. Nope, no phone calls. I really wasn't expecting anything, but it felt good to tell them at least. I now shop exclusively on Chewy, but I've had to go to Petco once, thinking everything would be fine. The manager ended up checking me out. She probably didn't recognize me, but she was really nice, and even told me to have a great day when I left. I started bawling once I got into the car. Won't do that again. Look, I know it's easy to kind of get in this habit of tunnel vision, certainly if you have like a pet or someone or something close to you passing away, but you never know what other people are going through. You know, maybe manager just had a bad day and she's honestly a jam-up, really nice lady as well. So, at least it sort of had a happy ending. I don't know. Story 63. Figo's Pasta in Atlanta. My wife and I met my in-laws there for a Sunday lunch. Parking was in the back in a fenced area. We parked, locked the SUV, and went inside. We were there probably an hour, and when we left, we came back out and got in to leave. I looked for my backpack in the back seat floor, and it wasn't there. It had my camera, lenses, and drone. I was going to go to Piedmont Park afterwards and fly the drone. I thought maybe I left it at home, but was pretty certain I grabbed it. I got out to inspect the car for a break-in and found a tiny-ass little hole under the driver's side door handle. I called the police and my in-laws to let them know what happened. A couple of minutes later, they called back and said all of their luggage was missing from their trunk and they had the same little hole. As other patrons came out, same thing. 7 different cars were broken into. The police came and took a generic-ass report and basically said they'll work on it. After my own detective work, I found that there are no cameras and all of the surrounding hotels and buildings have cameras that don't show that lot. This is apparently the go-to spot for break-ins because everyone knows there isn't a camera on it. I called the manager and raised hell, and they told me there's a sign in the back that removes liability from them. I drove back over there, and sure enough, there's a tiny effing sign posted on the back of the building, opposite the sidewalk side to enter, that says Figo's is not responsible for stolen items. I asked the manager why they didn't put in a camera to deter theft from their patrons, as this is a common occurrence. I was told that it was, quote, corporate policy. I'll never step foot in a Figo's ever again. They can offer free lasagna every day to my family, and I tell them to F off. Luckily, I had renter's insurance on our condo, so the stolen stuff was covered, but it was a nightmare trying to file the claim and recoup any of the money on the drone and camera. So also, F Georgia Farm Bureau. Story 64. The Los Angeles Chargers, formerly the San Diego Chargers, and the NFL in general. I was kind of bred into a family of San Diego parents outside of San Diego, but I grew up watching the Chargers every Sunday. Never a super well-performing team, and I could go into details about the strength of the AFC West and a bunch of crap, but it doesn't matter. The point is, I kind of grew up with a religious loyalty to what I believed was a regional sports organization. Growing up, there were definitely plainly visible cracks in the game I loved. The NFL is an absolute crap show of making tons of money, not paying any taxes, and exploiting society to do it. They bully local governments to foot the bill for their capital investments in billion-dollar stadiums. They have completely toxified the NCAA and all college sports. There's tons of baggage with the commercialization of college sports, from the bad rules where students can be celebrities but can be paid, the illegal under-the-table stuff that goes on with the boosters and stuff, hell, even prestigious colleges accepting completely academically unqualified students to be on teams and making up dud majors for them and bullying liberal arts professors to facilitate all of it and give them passing grades so they can play. Absolutely effing disgusting. Seriously, prestigious and respected educational institutions of the US that are world-renowned like USC, that train doctors and stuff, filthy their hands with financial crimes and illegitimate procedures to facilitate something and aesthetic as effing collegiate athletics? Don't get me wrong, I'm good for school spirit and collegiate rivalry and stuff, but seriously, who in the F is cultivating such a big cancer for something so shallow? I mean, Jesus Christ, all of the professors and researchers and graduate students must feel so embarrassed to be associated with such a reckless institution as to commit millions of dollars in financial crimes on a regular basis for something as fickle as having the best sports ball team? Should the defining characteristic of the school be the academics? But when you think of USC, Stanford, Notre Dame, etc., they've like inceptioned the idea of the effing football team as front and center. But I looked the other way. I liked football. I just did. Yeah, you could muckrake anything, but I really liked watching football with my dad and friends in college. There was always a thing with the Chargers in San Diego. They had a very old stadium. The billion-dollar stadium, the city bought them in the 1970s, wasn't up to the NFL standards in the 2000s, and they demanded San Diego build a new billion-dollar stadium for them. The city stood its ground for like 2 decades. Every offseason was a drama of the owner of the Chargers threatening to move the team. This is when it became apparent to me these weren't the San Diego Chargers. These were the Dean Spanos Chargers, who happened to reside in San Diego. Well, the day finally came when the threats were realized and Dean Spanos took his ball and went to LA. LA is not even that far from San Diego. I could still watch them and even go to games if I wanted to, but I don't want to. F the Chargers, F Dean Spanos, and F the NFL. At this point, it's a toxic influence on American culture. I work in manufacturing, and I could make an argument to the local government for less than $5 million into our plant that would create hundreds of jobs good enough for people to buy houses. Not even this minimum wage crap. But you know what? We don't do that. We're a legitimate business. We generate our own resources, build and manage our businesses like responsible members of society, and pay effing taxes while doing it. I don't understand why the NFL gets to be like a very corrupt, very dirty business that makes like $60 billion a year and can't even make its own effing capital investments. Your team has no loyalty to you. The players are not locals, they're college stowaways from F all around the country. The team itself is a business, like Disneyland or Six Flags. The whole thing is effing garbage and needs to be investigated federally. Story 65. United Airlines. This is what happened to my mother, as I'm pretty much transcribing her words. For one, they oversold the flight, which is apparently common practice because some people don't show up, which is weird because why on earth would you go pay that much for an airline ticket and not show up? I mean, okay, maybe if you get sick or find a better flight, but apparently that's more common than I thought. So they start going through saying, we got this amount here in United Credit. Who wants to take a bump? Mom just calmly sits. Ordinarily she would take it because, hey, she's kind of a frugal type, but she has a connecting flight. Well, they then walk to her and then say, ma'am, would you like this amount? Nothing. They then tell her that since she's flying alone, she has to be bumped, and if she doesn't comply, they'll have her thrown off. What the F? You throw your effing customers out? Well, given that they had airline security beat up a guy a couple years ago, they will. Also, a co-pilot can have the seat that she paid for. They get her off with the offer of airport security. Well, there goes that connecting flight. But wait, there's more. Since she missed the connecting flight, they start working on getting her on another flight to DIA. Thanks a lot, United. The vouchers they gave her didn't do crap to cover it because it was last minute. Ergo, the ticket prices were very expensive. Sorry guys, we can't exactly stay another few days at a place we have nowhere to stay. So she ends up charged almost $400 and is told that same-day bookings are expensive. Duh? You kick your own passengers off the flight they paid for, don't refund them because the tickets are non-refundable, and you're shocked that when the passengers you kicked off your own flights want to get on the next flight that's expensive because same-day booking? What if your customers have businesses? Are they just supposed to tell their coworkers, sorry, I got booted off the flight? And guess what? They oversold that flight too. They repeat the whole routine of who wants these vouchers for United Credit, and everyone keeps heads down. Guess who they pick? That's right, they pick my mom. They bump at least 5 people off that flight. By this point, I bet she's looking like Mrs. White in Clue Flames Flames on the other side of her face. At this point, she's stuck overnight. They send her for a 7 a.m. flight, which the vouchers actually cover most of it. Gasp. What a concept. She ends up having to spend a night at a hotel because the airport hotel is A, full, mostly of bumped passengers I bet, B, expensive as F. Finally, on the 7 a.m. flight, she gets out. And then we're hit with a ninja bill from them. They charged her for carry-ons when she had 1 carry-on. Oh, and the luggage she checked looked like it fell off the baggage handler car and got run over and then backed up for good measure. They denied any and all responsibility. For once, my mom decided to be a Karen and started acting like the entitled people. And, well, guess what? This time she was 100% right. You bump someone twice, then run over their luggage, say it's not our fault, and also say it's not your fault for losing the damn luggage? Sorry, I'm normally very sympathetic towards the workers, as I am one of them, but this time someone effed up. I just hope the person that she yelled at didn't get in trouble for having to elevate Mom's call, since Mom did not get pissy with them personally, but with the management. United, you nearly broke our credit rating like you broke Dave Carroll's guitar in that doctor's face. Story 66. United Airlines. A few years back, I took a trip from San Francisco to Greensboro. The itinerary was San Fran to Chicago to Greensboro and back the same way. Every single flight was either delayed or canceled due to maintenance issues. San Fran to Chicago, delayed 2 hours sitting on the taxiway. Chicago to Greensboro, delayed 2 hours. This was a flight you had to board from a staircase, and they had us stand outside for an hour on the blacktop in July. It was 90 degrees out. Now the return flights. On the way to the airport and find out my Chicago to San Fran is canceled. Great. Get to the airport for our Greensboro to Chicago flight and was told that the next flight from Chicago to San Fran was 2 days from now and there is nothing they could do. Nancy's being a total female dog about the whole thing, so I ask for a manager and it takes an hour and a half for one to show up. Don't worry though, because my Greensboro to Chicago flight has now been delayed 2 hours. Manager finds us a flight to Las Vegas and to San Fran the next day. We finally get on the flight to Chicago and all is going well. I've flown into Chicago a number of times and know the typical approach. This wasn't it. We were coming in low and slow over the county. I tell my wife I think something may be wrong. Lo and behold, the entire runway is lined with emergency vehicles that follow us into the gate. We're told by flight attendants that this is a training exercise on a Saturday at 12 a.m. Talked to the pilot while disembarking and was told they had an issue with brake sensor and were concerned they may not have brakes. We get into a hotel and get a bite to eat, then crash for the night. I awake to a text from United telling me my flight from Chicago to Las Vegas has been delayed. Seriously? It ends up being delayed 2 hours, which, okay, I have a 5-hour layover in Las Vegas, so it was nice to head to the airport a bit later and not have as long a layover in Las Vegas. We land in Vegas, and you guessed it, Vegas to San Fran is delayed. After 7 hours in Las Vegas, we finally board and land safely in San Fran.